And one of the things I believe heavily in is just having your camera with you all the time. And so starting next week, make sure if you didn't bring it tonight, make sure and bring your camera. And we'll talk about that for just a second. This is not a upper level photography course, and so I don't expect you or want you to actually go out and purchase a high-end DSLR camera. If you have just a simple point and shoot, that's fine, okay? The techniques you'll learn this semester, you can apply to all types of cameras, okay? The main thing you'll learn this semester is how to see things different and frame them different than you do now when you take photos, okay? The second thing you'll learn is the different types of settings on most all cameras and what those settings mean and how to use them. That's pretty basic. And so those are the things that I desire for you to learn. But the main thing is just to have your camera with you at all times. That way you can pull it out and use it at any moment's notice. Now, with the advent of digital cameras, as you mentioned, with film for years, that's what I shot with as well. Most users today don't print film to paper. Don't print their photos to paper. Most users, like yourself, who take photos, post their pictures where? Where do most people post pictures today? You got Facebook, Twitter, right? Any social media means. Not to say folks don't use print services still, but much less than they used to. Fact and point would be Kodak, who went on under not too long ago, who was at one point in the history the reason, you know, the Kodak moment. The reason photographers became photographers was in some form and fashion years ago because of Kodak and all the work they did. But somewhere along the way they did not evolve into the digital world like other camera makers have. And so they lost market share, and kind of sad to see. But, you know, I did hear last year there was a number of investors that are looking at bringing the Kodak name back and in a digital world, which I think would be pretty cool. So I think it'll probably happen. I mean, the Kodak name's kind of like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So, you know, if they get the right person to market, it'll definitely go like crazy. So, yeah, exactly. Polaroid's another one that's come back in the last year. You can actually buy old Polaroid type cameras now and take pictures with them, and the photos will come out immediately once you take the picture and shake it, and the photo comes into real color and everything within like 30 seconds, kind of like the old Polaroids. Now, some of you don't remember that, but some of us do. And so, in fact, I was at, where was it? I was at a mall over the weekend in one of the stores, and they actually had a whole rack of Polaroids that you could purchase, and even the film. So, but with the advent of digital cameras, and also the big one is smartphones. Smartphones are really what most users today take photos with, is their smartphones for the most part. So all the techniques that you learn this semester, you'll be able to apply them for sure to your point and shoot cameras all the way up to DSLR. And then even with your smartphones, the techniques that you'll learn. One of the techniques that we'll go into starting next week is basically where you split up your scene that you're looking at into like a tic-tac-toe type of environment, and you'll learn the different points on that environment that's the most prevalent and makes your pictures look the best. And so the other thing you'll learn this semester is about lighting. You'll learn also about camera placement, object placement in front of your camera, some tricks you'll learn on where to place people and objects to make it look more dimensional, more 2- and 3-dimensional. The best time to take photos of the day, any time of the day or any day of the year. How to maybe not steer away from bad weather when you take photos like you maybe have in the past. How that can be really dynamic and really cool photos that you can get out of weather. And in this area, we really do get a pretty good plethora of weather, whether it be winter, whether it be summer, whether it be storms, wind. We get a lot of that, and so we have a really, you don't have to drive too far to get picturesque mountains up north a little bit, and so, and a little bit south. And so there's really, this area is a very good area for photography. Also, at the end of the semester, one of the things you'll learn, or one of the things you have to do, is pick a profession of photography. We'll do that, I believe, on week 12. You'll pick a profession. I'll give you a handout. You'll look at the sheet. You'll pick one of the professions, like maybe nature photography, sports photography, real estate, commercial, art, modeling photography, artistic photography. Anyway, you choose one of the topics and you create a final portfolio of that photography. Before you leave tonight, there's still some up here, and what you'll do, these are from last semester actually, and the semester before, you'll actually create a portfolio that basically will have a cover sheet. Inside the portfolio will have a DVD, your resume, and a number of 8x10s. So when you leave this semester, everybody will have one of these that you'll be able to take with you. And you'll also learn how to create DVD from your pictures. I'll train you how to do that. And then also you'll be able to work on that from week 12, week 13, week 14, and then week 15 is when you present. Okay. One of the other things you'll be doing this semester is portrait photography, where you'll be able to invite your family and friends. I believe that's around week 11 to the school on a Tuesday night. We'll meet in the middle of the building here, set up a couple lighting apparatus, umbrella lighting, and you'll actually learn out on week 10 how to use those. Week 11, you'll invite folks to take their photo, family and friends, pets. We always invite pets to come. Every semester we have people bring pets, some exotic, some normal. 2 semesters ago we had a frog, a snake, a rat, and a little dog. 3 semesters ago we had a retired, I can't remember the name of the dog, but it's these type of dogs that go into nursing homes and go into hospitals to calm folks down. And anybody know the name? Therapy dog, thank you. That's what it was. He was a therapy dog. He did it for 15 years. Frank was his name, I believe, and he was retired. And he let the students take his photo for like an hour. He just laid around, just nothing really bothered Frank. Cat came in, he looked at it and just turned his head. It's no big deal. And so last semester we did have 3 cats, 4 dogs, and then one of the coolest one, I believe, is 2 years ago. Student had her kids here, and her husband, she didn't know, it just got back to my rack, and the family worked it out. She didn't know about it. Anyway, he walked into the room about the time they were getting ready to take photos, and the kids jumped right into Dad's arms, and everybody got to take photos of that time and that moment, which was pretty cool. And so, and again, she didn't expect it. So that type of photography is really what I'm all about, as far as real life, real emotion, whatever it is that you feel, you take photos of. And everybody's going to feel things differently. Like I can show a photo of whatever tonight, maybe a smiley face, and somebody will be like, oh, that's great. Somebody will be like, I really don't like that. Somebody will be like, I hate that. And so, it's a wide spectrum of feelings on photography. And when you do look at a picture, it does evoke some emotion, whether it be who cares, whether it be, yay, I'm excited, whether it be, I'm challenged, I'm enthused, whatever, you're going to have some type of emotion. So when you begin taking photos, that's the one of the things you'll learn this semester is put feeling and emotion into your photography as well. And so some of you will gravitate naturally towards portrait, towards nature, towards just natural outdoor events, sporting, whatever it is, really doesn't matter, just as long as you stick with what it is you're passionate about and you take photos of it. And the more and more you take photos, the better and better you'll get taking photos, which makes sense, right? One of the common complaints as students come into this class, or that they want to learn how to do, is take better photos. That's definitely number one. But number two is, you know, I want to have good lighting. It seems like my photos are either too dark, too light. You'll learn all that this semester. I'll help you learn how to control those as best as possible. You can't control it all the time. And there's sometimes, though, you take a photo, you think it's no good, and it looks no good maybe on the camera, LCD viewer, and on your computer, but when you print it out, it looks awesome. And so we'll talk about why that is, too, sometimes. Sometimes your photos you post on the web look great, but you try to print them out and they look terrible. We'll talk about why that is, what's the reason behind that. And there is reasoning behind all that. So, Web 225, we're just going to do an introduction tonight. I want to go over the navigation of the site first. The site is now open for everybody to access, and that's the first thing I want to make sure is everybody is able to get into RBC Eagle and access our website. So do that if you haven't already done that right now. I'll give you a moment to do that because I'd like you to kind of navigate with me tonight the website, and I will log in for you on yours so you can do it. I'll log in as me and then you can. If you're new to Mac, the browser we recommend for RBC or even Windows, the browser we recommend for Eagle is Firefox. And on the bottom dock of your Mac is a Firefox icon. And you just click on it once with your mouse and it should come up. Wire somewhere under here. You can wipe everything out if you wanted to. I know you want to. Okay, I'm going to set this to student view. That way you can see it like you're going to see it. Then you should be good to go. All right. Okay, is everybody able to access the site? Okay. And I'm going to try to go slow as I can tonight, just kind of take our time. We're not going to rush through. The weather is kind of nasty out there. I just came in. I know some of you did as well. So that's one. I'm going to rush a little bit faster than I normally do on the first night. I didn't expect us to get this tonight. I don't know if this was new or they forecasted this or what. But is this forecasted? Yeah. It was? Okay. Okay. So when you come to the website, this is what you see. On the left side of Eagle is some navigational items. We'll go over it first. If you're new to Eagle, this is the reason I want to go over this. If you're not new to Eagle, there may be some ways I do my class that might be different than other instructors you've had. So on the left side of the site is home, announcements, grades, syllabus, modules, and BrainFuse. Announcements is where you find announcements I post. In this class, I generally do not use announcements. I don't use them. If I want to have an announcement, I generally email everybody. I just don't use the announcements. And not to say I wouldn't use it, I just don't really use it much here. Grades is where you're going to access your grades. For the most part, each week, your assignments are due the following Sunday of that week at 11:59 p.m. is how it's set up in Eagle for this course. Syllabus, as a syllabus for the class. I don't know if this one's hooked up to this one. I don't believe so, but we'll watch and see. I don't think it is. The syllabus, I think, just gives you a detailed view of everything that's due that semester, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, which is kind of nice. When you click on syllabus, it gives you a view of when things are due and what date they are due on. Modules gives you a breakdown of all the modules. Some things are graded or week by week modules. Some, like the top one here, is just all the generic course documents, some of which we don't use right away, but some of the things we will use as the semester goes on. Like, for instance, there's one in here for creating a contact sheet. Pixlr.com is a site I recommend that we'll be using this semester to edit photos online. It's kind of like an online Photoshop. I noticed some of you are in graphic design and you're into media. You might have heard of this site already. It does allow you to open up a native Photoshop PSD file and have all the layers from Photoshop and edit that file and save it back as a PXD file in Pixlr. But what's great about Pixlr is it doesn't cost $500. Number two, you generally, in Photoshop, I was a graphic designer for about 10 years. Most designers use about 5% of the power of whatever they're using, whether it be, say, at the time I was a designer, it was Quark Express. Then it evolved to InDesign, which is probably the most popular now today with graphic designers, and Illustrator. And then Illustrator is more for manipulating images and logos and things of that nature. But InDesign and Quark Express are two layout and design programs that have evolved over the years. And then Photoshop is a package used to manipulate the images used in magazines, online websites, brochures, the list goes on and on, of image manipulation with Photoshop. But one of the cool things about Photoshop is it lets you create layers and use layers to manipulate images. Pixlr does that very same thing, but in an online format. Pixlr also has a lot of cool side things besides the plain editor that you can play with, cool filter and effects for photography. So it's more than enough for a beginning photographer, even an advanced photographer that wants to take red eye out of images, maybe lighten up a complexion, lighten up a background, it's got clone stamp tool, it's got bezeler line, it's got most of the filters, basic filters that Photoshop has. So you can start playing with it now. I love it, I use it all the time. And everybody I tell about, especially photographers that I mention Pixlr to, always months later, whenever I see them next, always say, man, I'm using Pixlr all the time now. I don't remember the last time I used Photoshop. Because they don't have to have their desktop with them or laptop with them. They even have phone apps you can have that you can load it up on and do the same effects on an iPad or an iPhone or even a Droid. And so Pixlr will be using this semester for photo editing. Because we only meet here once a week, Photoshop, this classroom, I believe, is the only classroom that has Photoshop installed. The labs out there do not have, and you might ask why. I'm glad you asked. It's because of cost. Photoshop's very expensive. Adobe Creative Suites, which now just changed their pricing structure, for those of you in graphic design probably know this, but now you can purchase $5 to $10 a month. I think it's $10 a month, $9.95 or something like that, for 5 programs as a student. And then you can, pick and choose those 5 programs you want, and they're in the cloud, so you don't install them like you used to install Creative Suites. But what's cool about it is they have a lot of mobile apps now, Photoshop does, to port to other devices. I've said that to say this, it's a little bit more affordable than what it used to be for students, but even $10 a month might be too much for some college students, and so that's where Pixlr comes in. So, and by the way, just to wait one more note on Photoshop, when you do become a designer full-time in a business, they will buy Photoshop for you. Okay, and so you really, if you play your cards right in school, you can, especially with Creative Suites now, you can fairly cheaply use the Creative Suites items in school while you're a student, and then let the company pay the $5 grand a year cost for the full package. Posting photos to TinyPic. TinyPic is really a service that has been around for a while. What it allows you to do is easily upload photos to TinyPic, and it gives you a short URL to where you can put it anywhere. And it's basically used a lot for social media. And once that short URL is created, you can create an account for the TinyPic, and what it'll do is it'll give you a life cycle of who's clicked on that picture and what location in the world they were at when they clicked on it through TinyPic. It's much like Bitly. You might have heard of that. bit.ly, which shortens URLs for you. And then once you create a URL with Bitly, You can then see who's clicked on it, how many clicks, and from where they were at in the nation, or the world actually. So those are some services we'll play around with. Then Picasa is something you can actually begin installing between now and next week if you don't already have it on your Mac or PC at home. Picasa is a photo management suite that's open source by Google, and definitely be using it. We'll be using that this semester to manage your photos on your client at home. And then you'll be using Picasa to create contact sheets, do minor editing on photos, and then at the end of the semester you can actually create a photo DVD with music in the background using Picasa, and you'll be using that for your final portfolio. So if you've not had any experience with Picasa, it's really easy to use. I have a lot of podcasts out there for Picasa to help you on how to use it. So, and while I'm talking about podcasting, before I go on to the contact sheet and week one, every session will be, the first part of the session anyway, will be recorded. So what you see in here is being recorded now, and it will be posted to, in this case, week one. There's an area for podcast each week. I also upload the podcast to iTunes U. The difference is on iTunes University that we have here on campus, I post a few more podcasts that we don't have time to cover in class that will be supplemental podcasts just for your benefit so you can watch them. If you're not used to or seen iTunes U, we'll talk about that in a second. Has anybody ever used iTunes in general? Maybe some of you have used that. If you've not used it, we'll go over what that is and what iTunes does and what iTunes University is. And then contact sheet using Picasa is just a tutorial. So this upper area is just basic course documents. Now I'm going to go back and click on the home button, the home link. So to view when things are due, grades is probably, or syllabus is probably an easy way. The other easy way to see when things are coming up is if you click on calendar and then click on agenda. If you click on calendar and agenda, this gives a really nice view of due dates when they are due. If these due dates are wrong right now, which they could be, because I just updated some of these today, I will correct them. But here's where you can see a snapshot of due dates as they're coming up. I believe I have all of week one good. I made sure of that, but I'll check all the rest of them. But what's cool about it is on this calendar view, you can scroll down here to the right side and click on calendar feed. And if you have a calendar on your Mac or PC or on your phone that you use, which I know a lot of you use phone calendars, maybe tablet calendars, you can actually highlight that URL and add it to a feed in your calendar. And so your course calendar will actually become a part of your phone calendar, your tablet calendar, or your desktop calendar. And it works for Google Calendar, iCal, which is a generic, in fact, the most popular calendar link you can create is iCal, and that's what this link is. Outlook, etc. So pretty much any calendar you could use, this link will work with. Does that make sense? And so you don't have to log into Eagle. What's the beauty of this is if you did utilize this for all your classes, you wouldn't have to actually log into Eagle to see items for due dates for your classes, if that makes sense. And what's cool about it is when it saves it to your calendar, it actually does put a link directly to that assignment in Eagle. To where if you're on your phone or your tablet and you click on that link, you do have to authenticate into Eagle, but once you log in, you can then see that exact assignment and not have to guess where it's at. And so that's really nice. So I definitely recommend trying it and playing with it. You might not like it, but it might be a great idea to play with it anyway, is to add this calendar feed to your calendar. So I'm going to go back. So again, the calendar agenda is the one that I definitely recommend to seeing everything in a snapshot view. Okay, going down a little further here in the middle, let's talk about that. I'm not going to click on all these, but course navigation helps. It's just that. It helps you navigate the site. Go over some things I already went over. RBC Eagle Canvas tutorial. If you're new to Eagle and you need help, they do have some online tutorials that'll help you. And then there's a link to the syllabus you can read on your time. The Facebook page, if you click on that, it will bring you to this page here. That basically is cleaned up a little bit with users. When you come to this page, you will have to, I believe, to just like the page. Once you like it, it does give you the ability to post and do things on the photo, you know, make comments and all that good stuff. Periodically throughout the semester, I will put, starting this week actually, I put out generally in week 1, something fun for you to do with your camera and the post pictures here in the Facebook page. So definitely recommend that. There's a link to my email. And then the next one I want to mention is a live chat. If you click on the live chat, it's going to spin, and then eventually it'll load a screen to put your name in. And once you put your name in fact, don't do it. I'm going to do it, because if I do it now, I'm going to get prompted with everybody's email here or text message. So as soon as I hit this, it'll prompt me on any device I'm currently on. Somebody's trying to connect. If I have good internet connection, it will. If I don't, it won't. Once a timer goes out, there it goes finally. Once a timer goes out, it'll say I'm not available. But if I am available, all I have to do is select this, hit yes, and eventually you'll see it show up here. I might have selected somebody else, I don't know. I've had a lot of them. Let's see, what time is it? 8:07. There it is. Okay. And so as soon as you see this show up, you know I'm available. And then I will type in some type of response. Depending on the time of day, depends on the response you'll get. No, just kidding. If you hear a what exclamation point, might be a good idea to just exit out. No, just kidding. But I'll get a response, something like this to you, like how can I help? And then you'll go back and forth on how I can help you. And so use that as much as you want to this semester. If you have a question about photography or about an assignment, you can definitely utilize the chat feature. Make sense? And so again, that's for your benefit. And if I am online, regardless of where I'm at, I will answer. Okay? And let's just talk about communication real quick. Besides chat, email, I'm very quick. I try to be anyway on responding to emails. First part of the semester, first week's pretty hectic, but even then I'm the type of person, if I see something in my inbox, I will answer immediately to that question. So don't worry about emailing me or annoying me with your emails. I love emails, and so send them any time of day or night. That's the beauty of emails, right? You can send them day or night. It's not going to annoy the person. And so chat at the same time. I'd say, you might cut off the chat around 11 p.m. Even though I do stay up late at times to grade and things of that nature. I'd say 11 p.m. would be good, though. All right? And any questions so far? This lab here? Yeah. If there's not a class in here, I believe they leave this classroom closed, if I'm not mistaken. If you were to need this classroom for some reason, like to work on a project, let me know. I can get you into this classroom. If there's no classroom going, I'll just tell the lab people and Deb Nelson that so-and-so student would like to come in. What times do you have available? And I'll let you know. Does that make sense? Now, the lab out there does have one Mac out in the middle that is supposed to be reserved only for students that have classroom in here. And so generally, if you've ever been out there, that's generally empty. Nobody ever sits there. So, but she's shaking her head no. No, okay. So you can use that though anytime it's open. But if that's not open and you're needing here to be have quiet space or something, just let me know. We'll work it out. You're right, they do. Now I don't know what the, if you don't mind volume, you're fine there. I've heard it gets a little louder over there, but it's a student center, right? But I think they keep it pretty quiet in there from what students have told me, right? They keep it pretty quiet. It's not like a, free-for-all or something, right? They pretty much, they do. They have signs up. Okay, cool. So student center has, how many Macs they have over there? They have a good row there on the end? Okay, cool. Yeah, and it's these kind right here, right? This size? Okay, cool. So the student center has a little computer lab over there. I'm trying to think of where else. That's about it, I think, that you'd really, really like to go to would be this one and then student center. And the student center, every time I walk by, it's got at least half a dozen students in there usually at all times. It's not totally packed. I've never seen it totally packed. I'm not saying it's not, but I've never seen it totally packed. And so it'd be a nice place to go.
I'm taking another course, Photoshop, and it's on Stenstrom.
Okay, yeah, in Stenstrom.
Much rather come here and go.
Yeah, and you can come here anytime or the student center anytime, so good question. Any other question on that? On computer lab opened when they're open? I believe in here, well, we're supposed to go to 10:15. I generally do not go that late in this classroom. We get done what we're supposed to get done, and I let you go. In fact, starting this week, week 1, I generally have, towards the end of class, at the very end, a take-home lab for you to do. The first few weeks of class, the take-home lab involves other folks in the classroom that you're around, a group of people you're going to do a lab together, specifically twofold reason. One is to get to know each other. 2 is to have fun with your camera and to get to know some of the settings of your camera. So generally when I have you guys leave, even if it's like at 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour before class is technically over, that time's supposed to be used to help you complete the lab or get a good start on completing the lab before you leave. Does that make sense? Now with the winter months here, students for this semester generally try to utilize this building inside, but then also I've known students to go over to other buildings on campus or go off campus to like Walmart or the mall or a restaurant or something like that. And so you'll get to know each other a little bit in here this semester to where you'll figure out what you want to do and where you want to go. Depending on the weather can make a difference what you're going to do. Okay? But not all of your take-home labs are group related, but the first few weeks I try to keep it like that just so you guys get to know each other a little bit. I've already went over course documents. That's the one I went over earlier at the very top of our modules. So let's keep going here on down. What I did last semester was I changed the structure to where when you see a week, you see an image that relates to what we're covering that week to make it a little bit more graphical, a little bit more user-friendly. The first week is just introduction. I have an old Brownie camera because that reminds me of my history with cameras and where I come from. I still have that camera at home on my shelf in my den, and if I pulled it out and dusted it off, it probably still would take photos today. So that's what we'll cover this week. Next week is camera history. Week 3 is settings and contrast. Week 4 we're going over contact sheet and ISO setting on your camera. Week 5 exposure. Week 6 white balance. Week 7 restoration. That's a good one. That's a fun one. They're all good, but that's a particular one I really like. Because when I was taking my master's degree, my grandparents have been married almost 60 years, and before they got married, it's weird, but I think it was pretty common back then. One of them had to do with probably it cost a lot of money. So a lot of people didn't get real nice portraits. It was right after the Depression, and so there was no portrait of themselves together before they got married as a couple. And so I found a photo of, it always portraits, but not real nice. Everybody dress up and take a portrait type photo. So I found a photo from my mom of my grandmother and then one from my grandfather. Both were like around the time they graduated college. And so my final project for my master's in graphic design, photography, it was in the Photoshop class actually, was taking those 2 photos and making them one as it looked as if it were taking a portrait. Took me about 3 months working in Photoshop to get it, but it was really awesome. I presented it to them for their anniversary that year, and still have it. Made multiple copies of it to give to my mom and her sister and other family members. And so restoration is one of those things in photography, whether you do a real drastic restoration, like from an old photo to make it look new, to taking out red eye, blemishes on people, anything you can think of cosmetically, you can do in restoration photography. And so you learn that week some tips and tricks on restoration photography, which you will be using in pretty much all photos you see. I would say all, if I was to be truthful, all photos you see on magazines of people and places have been touched up post-production. And whether they use Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever, Pixlr, it's going to be post-production type of work. And so that week you get to have fun in class with an in-class lab. One of the labs is on changing Tom Cruise to look like an avatar. The second is to take a nice building of a courthouse, a nice sky, and making it into a gloomy, dark sky with a flying saucer coming in to attack the Capitol, to attack the building, basically. That's the second one. And the third one is removing blemishes, is the third one. And you get to pick which one you want to play with for a tutorial. I give you multiple sources you can find on the web to help you. You use Pixlr exclusively, and that's a good week to really get to know the power of Pixlr and what it can do. And then you submit a before and after of that tutorial. Then you get a whole week to play with a photo of your own from your family or friends that need restored and be able to restore it. And so if you don't have a photo, I'm sure if you post something on Facebook, within seconds you'll have somebody send you one that needs restored. And so it's a lot of fun. I like that one. The next week is panoramic. Panoramic photography I really love as well. This is one, most of your cameras today have a panoramic setting, but we won't use that. We do it old school on panoramic photography and show you how to do it with any type of camera and a tripod. Take a really nice panoramic photo. There's a couple services I will recommend if you want to look at now. And I'm going to start using it this semester for your photos because I really like it. I've been using it for about 10 years, but it was kind of costly, but they made it free now. There's a free service now for it, and I did not change it in the steps yet, but it's fotki.com, foki.com. It's a photography service that's actually started with professional photographers only years ago, and it's about $35 a year. And it was that way up till about 1.5 years ago. Now, they make it available to anybody to sign up for a free account, and you get unlimited space on the servers. The difference is with a paid account, they allow you to keep the full resolution of the image. That way, I had pictures on mine like 10 years old that I could go back and get the full resolution image I uploaded 10 years ago of that image. And so that's great for photographers because when you want to save your images, you want that full resolution image that you took that photo of. The cool thing about Foki as well that's cool for photographers is if you're at any event taking photos, say a wedding, a sporting event, you can set up a store within Foki to sell those photos to folks. You can mark them up from what Foki charges, or you can just keep them the same price Foki has and just offer it to people to go to Foki and buy the photos and have it shipped to their house in a couple days. Foki prints out photos from 4x6 all the way up to poster size images, and the pricing structure is pretty competitive. And so this semester, I believe I have in there, I can't remember, I don't remember what served, is it Flickr? Yeah, Flickr is the one I generally have used in the past semesters, but I'm going to start using this semester Foki for your photo repository. So in the steps, you'll notice in week 1, I do tell you to create a Flickr account, but I'm going to have you use Foki this semester. We're going to start seeing how that works. I think you'll really like it. So, panoramic, I was on that. Panoramic, the reason I was on Remind Me of Folky was there's quite a few panoramic photos, and even photos from past semesters. I have a folder on my account for Web 225, and you can see kind of here in about week 2 or 3, we post some stuff up there, and you'll see history of students and photos they've taken over the last few semesters, which is kind of cool. Landscape photos, week 9. The other one is a really cool one students like is macro photography. You might have heard of close-up photography. And I'll show you how you can do this type of photography with any type of camera, really. Granted, you can buy lenses that cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get a really cool, scientific, medical journal type of photography for cells and things of that nature. But, if you're shooting beetles or leaves or insects, most of your point-and-shoot cameras today do a pretty good job on macro photography. Week 11, train you on lighting and how lighting umbrellas work and where you can buy them fairly cheap. And while we're talking about buying stuff, I do recommend here in town, if you've not been there already, Camera Craft on Perryville will do really well by students that come there from this class. They have fairly decent prices and discounted prices for students. And they will educate you on things as well. So if you don't know something, if you're just looking at things and wanting to kind of browse around, they're really nice to help you out. Now, I don't want you to go in there and buy a brand new camera. I want you just to let you know they're there for you as the days go on and months and semesters go on, and after you leave this class, it's a great place to go to browse around. Anybody been to Camera Craft and played around? Okay. Do you agree it's a nice place to go to? Yeah. Really good bunch of people there, and I think you'd really like it. Week 12 is a portrait lab I already mentioned. Week 12 is where you begin in that week. You have the final PDF file where you choose your profession and submit it that week, and you actually can begin working on your final portfolio that week. And let me just tell you, on your final portfolio for photos, it's not just the photos you've taken this semester. You can pull photos from your library you already have in your library at home for your final portfolio. Okay, it's not just fresh photos. And then week 13, you'll work on final portfolio, week 14, and then finally, week 15 is your presentation, where you'll come up here, give me your DVD, I'll play it, you'll tell us your challenges, your successes, things you would like to work on, keep working on. And then I've had students actually take these portfolios that really are real interested in maybe doing photography for a living or on the side, and take these portfolios and actually get a job and get an internship. And most students that take this class just want to become a better hobbyist with their camera, and that's great. This is still going to help you because it'll help you at all your events now to create a DVD post-event that you can give to all your family members. You'll know how to post them on a website, like using Folky, email it out to everybody, and so it's going to help whether you stay as a hobbyist or go further in professional photography. And the last thing I want to mention about this class is image manipulation, okay? Image manipulation, to me, is probably one of the coolest things with photography because there's so many cool things you can do with post-production. Now, I'm a big believer, and you'll hear me say it over and over this semester, that when you take a photo, that photo that you take, whatever the lighting is, good or bad, whatever the pose is, good or bad, that you're structured in the camera of the subjects, is the best you're going to get. Because there's only so much you can do. Let me give you an example. Say I take a picture of you guys tonight, and you move a little bit, and it's a little blurry. Not much I can really do in that post-production to make it clear. Really, there's not much I can do with it. The other thing you can't do much in post-production is granular pixelization, which you'll learn about this semester, where images are kind of pixelized. They kind of look really weak and maybe spotty. There's only so much you can do with that one too, post-production. But one thing you can do post-production, though, it's real popular for photographers, is gentle lighting changes. So if it's a little dark, you can make it a little lighter. Okay, red eye, you can do that post-production easily. Blemishes, you can do in post-production. You can also take a picture that's color, make it black and white, post-production. Or what I like is take a photo and make it blended. Part black and white, part color. Kim Anderson, the artist, is real popular for that. Anybody heard of Kim Anderson before? Okay, Kim Anderson has these figurines, and my wife has everywhere in the house. Anyway, it's always, and then she also has paintings as well. Anyway, it's, if you see the painting or figurine, either one, it's generally two kids dressed up in adult-size clothes. Like an example would be a little girl dressed up in a really big dress, holding a rose, and the boy dressed up in a tux, so it's a little too big for him, and he's handing the rose to the girl. And the girl and boy both will be kind of grayscale black and white, and the rose is going to be the true red rose color. So she does a lot of that. And so that kind of brings, that can be done in post-production easily, and that's a cool thing to do. Now granted, there's programs you can get that'll do that, but I am still from the old school a little bit when it comes to post-production on using the tools that you know how to use, kind of like a carpenter, and to do post-production well. And so Pixlr will let you do that. Photoshop, if you have that, will let you do that. But either way, just knowing those tools that you have in your arsenal that you can use to make those photos better. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over week 1. So if you go to week 1 and click on the picture, click on the text, we'll kind of go over these one by one, and then we'll be done tonight and let you go do your first take home tonight. The first thing you want to do is subscribe to iTunes U. I know there was 3 hands that went up. I counted them when I said iTunes. So I'm going to spend a few moments to talk about iTunes real quick and tell you what it's about. Okay. Well, some of you might have heard of iTunes, but iTunes U might be something different. So if I click on this subscribe to course podcast on iTunes U, it brings me to this page where it says number 1, install iTunes. Well, if you have a Mac, you already have iTunes. If you have a PC, you probably don't have iTunes unless you've installed already. It is a free download. You can go right, once you've installed it, you can go right to Rock Valley College's website. I'll show you on the overhead. You can click on that link, or if you go to Rock Valley College's website, there is a link right here at the top. Looks like a music bar that takes you right to iTunes U. It's right to the left of YouTube. It says, welcome to Rock Valley College and iTunes U. In cooperation with Apple, Rock Valley College presents iTunes U. Download faculty lectures, interviews, and more. Play content on your iPod, Mac, PC, burn a CD, stay connected. If you click on this, go to Rock Valley College and iTunes U, and iTunes is installed. How much power I have here? I'm going to plug in my Mac while that thing's launching. It's going to launch iTunes and go right to the Rock Valley College store on iTunes University. And these are just some of the courses out there right now that you can register to. I bumped my Mac. So these are some of the courses you can register and subscribe to. Some of you I noticed were in graphic design. Scott's done a few from in there. Still uses some for Photoshop Intro and Quark. Still out there. He just updates them. He's got a new one coming up this semester, actually. For our course, you've got all the different courses here. You find Web 225. Probably looking at podcast anywhere. So you're going to get podcasts in media, music, movies. Any band that you like has a podcast probably. They post one every week probably. And so I challenge you, I guess, to subscribe to a couple photography podcasts for sure, but then also subscribe to things you like to do, hobbies, right? Music, your favorite band. they have a podcast probably on iTunes U or on iTunes. Subscribe to it. Technology, if you're into technology, tons of technology podcasts that are great out there that you can subscribe to. So challenge to you, subscribe to some podcasts, not just ours, but others as well. So questions on podcasting. All right, cool. So you subscribe to ours, and then also challenge you at least 2 or 3 other podcasts besides our podcast. It would be great. All right, let's go back to where we were at in week 1. So you're subscribing to podcast, went over iTunes U. You're going to read the course syllabus on your own, complete the About Me in week 1, which is really difficult, you'll see in a second. It's not. Week 1 podcast will be replaced with what you're hearing tonight. This link will go to tonight's podcast. It will be replaced. The week 1 About Me is worth 20 points, due Sunday. You're going to copy the below questions, click reply, paste the questions into a new post, answer them, and reply to at least 2 other people's. So you'll copy these questions, put them down here, answer them. Once you've answered the questions, you will post, and then you'll see the student's name and their reply. And then you can click this reply button. If I click this to Ann, I can reply to her post here. All right? And I want you to reply at least 2 other people's post about me. Question on that. All right? Photo site. I'm going to change this while I'm in it here. Let me leave this. And we said we're going to use Foki instead of Flickr, so I'm going to change it right now. I knew I didn't update this one. Okay. So you go to Foki.com. You can register now for free on Foki.com. Once you register as a user, I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like on the sign-up sheet. Username. Spend some time thinking about your username. Make it unique and something that has to do with you. If it's not available, it will tell you it's not available. But think of something unique that's to yourself, because once you create that username, it's there. You can't change it. And so spend a few moments thinking of that. Don't do it right now. You'll put in your password, your email, where you live, some validation code, and then sign up. I will show you what mine looks like, my Foki account that I've had for years. I have some of these locked too, which I love about Foki too. So if you have family members, you don't want everybody to see stuff. Like my sister hates her photos taken. She definitely doesn't want anybody looking at them. And so she made sure I put a password protection on those photos. So let me show you the photos here I'm talking about. I click on albums, and you'll notice where it says family photos, it has a little lock on it. Okay. The only way for me to get into this, I'm logged in, so it's going to let me in. It would prompt me for a password if I wasn't logged in. If you guys were looking at it, it would prompt you to log in. So over here on the left side is Web 225 history. I click on that. Be able to see history like from last semester, Web 225, fall 2013. Has their portraits, has 68 files, landscape, pano photography, panoramic, restore photos. So you can look at some of the things they did last semester in there. But this is my structure of my Foki, and definitely recommend it. Love it. Works great. Like I said earlier, you can create your own store. You can set custom prices to a store. of whatever sizes, from wallets all the way up to 24 by 36 mat size on Foki. So, another recommendation is, notice mine says United States Rock, Michigan. I recommend putting a city and state that's not Rockford, Illinois, or wherever you live, just for safety, just people, weirdos. Just make it a different city and state. Yeah, yeah. Make it a different city and state, kind of like hopefully you're doing in social media. You just don't put out your schedule and your phone number and your address. Don't do that either. Same here, just kind of put a fake city and state would be recommended. Questions on Foki. So take some time the next few days to create that. Once you create the Foki site, then submit the URL below. And let me go back to student view so you can see what I'm talking about on the student view. Those of you new to Eagle, it might be a few in here, that I think there's one or two that's new to Eagle. Anytime there's something due on an assignment page, it'll show up on the right side. It'll say submission or submit assignment. When you submit assignment, it's a text entry, so all you're going to do is paste in there your URL to your website, to your Foki website is all you'll do. Okay? Next is make a model of camera. Between now and next week, you're going to put in this location the kind of camera you have and the model. Make a model. So maybe it's a Fujifilm FinePix, maybe it's a Nikon Coolpix 6300, maybe it's a Nikon SD4. Whatever it is, you put in there your make a model and submit it. Questions on that? Good? You guys are really talkative tonight, I tell you. Have to quiet it down some. All right, and a photo inspiration. This one is your very first take home. And next week is when you're going to do your lab. I don't throw you all together the first week. It's the second week you guys take photos of each other. Next week, week 2, is where you take the mug shots of each other, where you kind of have fun playing with your camera and getting to know each other a little bit. So tonight, I'm going to be easy on you. You're going to do photo inspiration this week, which, remember, I started off the class telling you one of my main objectives is to get you looking at photos differently, looking at how you take photos differently, and how photos evoke feelings, right? So to get you started this semester, I want you to take home assignment that will inspire you to begin learning how to take good photographs. So you'll go to that website. I'm not going to click on it. You're going to browse at least 5 photographer portfolios. There's a number of portfolios on that link. Okay? You'll find a portfolio photographer you like. Now, just a warning to you, there are some photographers that are kind of, they might show partially nude or even nudes on some of these photographers that might be out there possibly. And when you go into photography, that's just the nature of the beast when you start looking at professional photographers. Okay? So just so you know that. I'm not saying all of them are like that, but there might be some that you might not like. So don't go to that photographer. Number 3, what you'll do, once you find a photographer portfolios that you like, you're going to browse those portfolios and reply below, and preferably with an upload photo. Now let me show you real quick on a Mac. How many has a Mac at home already? How many has a Mac at home? Okay. Those of you who have a Mac at home, you probably know this, but if you don't, if you do Shift-Command-4 on a Mac, it'll turn into the little cross symbol there, and I can take and select any area of the screen, and it's going to do a screenshot of it and put it to my desktop. Okay? So if you're on a photographer's website, a lot of photographers copyright the photos from being downloaded. Okay? They don't want you to use them for your print images or whatever, which makes sense because, you know, a normal stock photo that's a good stock photo can go for $600 each time somebody buys it, and it's still theirs. That's pretty crazy, right? But if you go to any like Comstock.com stock photo website, these guys get a lot and gals get a lot out of stock photography. And so one of the ways you can get around that for educational purposes, just for this class, we're not going to be putting in any editorial or anything, is you can do a screenshot on the Mac I just showed you. On the Windows, I gave you the steps of how to do it using Windows 8 or 7 snippet tool. You can just snippet that portion of the screen that has a picture, and it'll save it. to a location you want to save it to. Then what you'll do is basically upload it to the discussion. To upload a picture to the discussion, you're going to use TinyPic, which I mentioned earlier. TinyPic, I have a podcast of how to use it, and you'll add a photo to the discussion using TinyPic. TinyPic's just a URL you'll post in there. People will be able to click on it and see the image that inspired you. So what you'll do is you will post, take a screenshot most likely of that photo, the photos that you like. One for sure, but up to 3 you can take and post. And I want you to grab a photo that catches your eye the most. And don't really care about initially why, just that it catches your eye. Only think about the why while you're creating the TinyPic link and you're uploading it. Be thinking of why you like this photo. Here's some comments in the past students have put on photos they've liked from this assignment. It's cool. It makes me feel good. All right? It's funny. It inspires me. This photo wants me to become a professional photographer. This photo realizes how much of a novice photographer I am. Okay? These are some comments might come out of you possibly. All right? But whatever the reason, it might be the lighting, it might be the textures of the image. Whatever it is, you just tell us why. There's no wrong answer on the why, okay? And there's no wrong photo. Just something that catches your eye, and don't think too much about it. When it catches your eye, just save it. Do it, all right? Sometimes you put too much thought in photography, it begins becoming a task and boring, and you really don't like it, okay? And you might pick a picture you really don't like at the end. Generally, that first instinct is a picture you really like, okay? And some of you might be surprised on the images you really like, you didn't think you would like, and you will like them, all right? Make sense on that? So grab at least one photo for sure, up to 3, but at least one that you really catches your eye. Create a TinyPic link from it. Watch the podcast if you've never used TinyPic before. It's pretty simple. You'll put the TinyPic image in here on the reply. Underneath the TinyPic link, you'll put why you like that photo or photos. What caught your eye about those photos or that photo. Questions on that? And once you've posted your photos or photo, I want you to reply at least 3 other photos that students have posted by class time next week. And we're going to kind of look at a few of them at the beginning of class. We're just going to look at the images. I'm really not going to spend time on your comments as much as the images that you've captured. Okay, so don't worry, I'm not going to be like, oh, you really said that? Okay, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to look at the images real quick and just see what really caught your eye. Make sense? 1 for sure, yes. Most students go with 1 and they're good. But if you get inspired and you like 3 of them, that's great. But 1 for sure. Okay? 1 is required. Any other questions? Guess what? That's it for week 1. If you have any questions, come and see me. Next week, though, make sure you bring your camera with you. If you do have any questions whatsoever over anything I've went over tonight, this podcast will be uploaded where you can rewatch it again or not. Also, make sure that you subscribe to iTunes U, as it says in week 1, and do all the other steps there. But I look forward to a great semester in digital photography, and have fun taking photos this next week, and have fun looking at photos on this photography website. All right? All right, that's it. We're done. And be careful out there, too. Be careful outside. If you have any questions, come see me, and I'm going to get your ad slip for you.